And we took off to fly to Guadalajara, and on the way there, the plane crashed. And my mother, my father, and my little sister were all killed, and I wasn't. And I woke up on this mountain in Mexico. My mother was laying over there, my father was laying right over there, and my little sister was over there. And my skull was fractured, my back was broken in 3 places, my arm was crushed, my leg was all torn to pieces. And I was paralyzed from the waist down, and I was awake. The only thing I could move was my right arm. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't move, and I just watched them all bleed to death. And I pretty much quit the game right there. It was just a real quiet decision in my head. I quit. There's no need for the facade anymore. I don't need to be doing all these things on the outside to make it okay for me to drink and use the way I want to drink. I don't have to pretend anymore.
Well, hello, friends of Bill W. and other friends. You have landed on Sober Speak. My name is John M. I am an alcoholic, and we are glad you are all here, especially newcomers. Newcomers, that is, both to recovery as a whole and newcomers to this podcast. Sober Speak is a podcast about recovery centered around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. My job here on Sober Speak is simple. My job is to provide a platform to the amazing stories of recovery all around us. Consider Sober Speak, if you will, your meeting between meetings. Please remember, we do not speak for AA or any 12-step community. We represent only ourselves. We are here to share our experience, strength, and hope with those who wish to come along for the ride. Take what you want and leave the rest at the curb for the trash man to pick up. Greetings from Studio AA, deep in the heart of Texas, here on episode number 292. That was the voice of Mr. Earl H that you heard at the beginning of this episode, and you are going to hear so much more from Earl in just a moment. But first things first, this here episode is brought to you by Kate and David and Marie and Michelle. And what, you may ask, did Kate and David, Marie and Michelle do to deserve such a mention? Well, they went to our website, www.soberspeak.com. They clicked on the little yellow donate tab, and they made, you guessed it, a contribution. So thank you so much, Kate and David and Marie and Michelle, for your contribution and helping us keep the virtual lights turned on. This here episode is coming right out to Ewans. All right, so I got something here that I just saw before I came on to record, and it was in the super secret Facebook group, and it's from Mr. Rick R. He's actually a friend of mine, Rick R., and he posted this in the Facebook group. By the way, if you are wondering, how do I get access to that secret Facebook group? Go to go to the Facebook application, click or search for Sober Speak secret group and ask for admission, and we'll get you on in there. But anyway, Rick posted this, and it said, this is from page 46 of the big book, and I love this quote. It says, "We found that God does not make hard terms with those who seek him." So wherever you are out there, I want to read that again. It says, "We found that God does not make hard terms with those who seek him." And then it goes on, "To us, the realm of the Spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding. It is open, we believe, to all men." Page 46 from the big book. Such a beautiful quote. Okay, so I was about to introduce Earl H, and I'm going to introduce him in a second, but something just came to mind for me right before I started to record this, and I thought, I may talk about this, I may not. I'm going to see where the Spirit leads me. But I was recently talking to a friend of mine, and we were just talking about all kinds of things. To make a long story short, Me and the lovely Mrs. M had been having several conversations lately about how we believe that our relationship should look, right? And I'm sure if you've been married for any extent of time out there, you're going to recognize this. But anyway, some of those were difficult conversations. And the reason I bring up the gentleman that I was talking to is because I had always kind of looked at him and thought, I think that's what I would like my relationship to look like with the lovely Mrs. M. And I asked him, how is so-and-so doing? I'm going to leave some names out here. And he said, oh, well, we split up a couple of years back because of a couple of different reasons. Okay. I'm not going to go into those, but it kind of took me aback. And I immediately went to the lovely Mrs. M and told her that story. And what I meant by that was I have this perception of how others live and how I think my life and our lives should look within this home. And sometimes what I'm seeing is not actually happening out there. I can't, and you've heard this many times before, judge my insides by somebody else's outsides. And I went to the lovely Mrs. M and I went through this conversation and I said to her, I'm sorry, sweetie. I want to tell you about, or I said, hey, let me tell you about this conversation that I had with this other gentleman, and they had split up. And I said, I'm sorry that I have a tendency to project what I see other people doing as what we should be doing. And what is important here is whatever is working out between us, we have to work it out between me and you and God. And all of that, it wasn't a ton, but there was some tension that had been built up. And all of that dissipated on the spot. And I don't know why I wanted to say that. I just thought it was important. I ask other people, when I say other people, other guests that we have, when I have guests on this podcast, to be vulnerable. And I tell them that's what people will relate to. Can you just be vulnerable? Let them know what's really going on in your life. So I don't know why, but that came to my mind, and I just wanted to talk about it here on the podcast before I introduced Earl H. And now we're going to go on to Earl H. By the way, feel free to reach out to me at any time at John, JOHN, at soberspeak.com. And here is the one and only Mr. Earl H. If you've never heard Earl live before, you're going to really enjoy this. Earl has lots of highs and lots of lows, and he has a gift and a talent for telling his story. You're going to enjoy that. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I do present to you Mr. Earl H. And we will have plenty of listener feedback at the end of this here episode. Enjoy, Earl.
Hi, everybody. My name's Earl. I'm an alcoholic. Thank the committee for asking me to speak at an event like this. Always an honor and a privilege. Thank Dennis for all the communication. Bubba for picking me up at the airport. Getting me situated up here. It's always strange. You start feeling, you do enough of these after a while, you start feeling kind of like an astronaut. You just get on this flying machine and you blast out to someplace you've never been, with people you've never seen, and you feel kind of isolated, out of sorts. And flying being one of my favorite things to do. I'm sprung anyway by the time I get wherever I'm getting. And I get in the car, and all of a sudden it's Earl and Bubba. It's Earl and Bubba in a car in South Carolina. I don't even know where South Carolina is, you know what I mean? And I'm driving down the road, I have no idea what's going on, It's like I get out, and it's like a buddy of mine moved out from Los Angeles that, and he said, yeah, come on out, man, we're going to play golf, it's going to be great, golf courses, resort. I'm thinking Palm Springs. I get out, I'm walking the car going, hey, it's very cold here. I have shorts in the bag, So once again, I'm totally prepared for what's going on. And I walk into the lobby, and there's Hank. I walk in the lobby, and this guy goes, "Hi, Earl. Look up at Hank. I know Hank. I love Hank. Hank shares at meetings, and I know I'm in the right place. I've seen Hank different, I've landed in other different states and walked in, and some guy says, "Hi, Earl," and I look over, and it's Hank. It's like, Hank really gets around, man. Hank is everywhere. Anyway, let's get this over with. I drank. I drank a lot. I got drunk the first time I ever drank. Seemed to me that was kind of the point, I was restless, irritable, and discontented, from the gate. I was born that way. And when it got to when I was 12 years old, well, let me go back a minute here. When I was 5, hey, look, Santa's here. Glad you made it, Santa. Santa's in the back. I love that. It's this is November, though, right? It's still November. I'm getting more confused by the minute, man. I need sleep. Oh. When I was 5 years old, I started sleepwalking and talking in my sleep. I'd walk through the house, stand at the foot of my parents' bed, talk for a while, scare the hell out of them, walk back to my bed, get back in bed. They'd follow me back there, ask me questions, I'd answer. I was a disturbed child. They ran a bunch of tests on me, and it turned out that their answer they came up with was that they would give me this tablespoon of liquid every night before I go to sleep. They'd medicate me, knock me out, right? Knock me out. No more sleepwalking, no more problem, right? So, real early in life, I got the message, things aren't going the way you want them to go, take something. Make it all right. Sort of filed that for future reference. By the time I was 12, they did some IQ tests. It turned out I had this very high IQ. I don't have it anymore, so I'm not bragging. That was gone by like 16. And so they shipped me off to boarding school, and I got shipped off to this boarding school. And as a matter of fact, I met a guy in Memphis, Tennessee, speaking in a conference there about 2 weeks ago, who went to that school. Weird. Anyway, I ended up in this school. I was 12 years old. We drove to this place. Nobody told me I was going to boarding school. Drove. We pulled up to this place, caravan of cars, the whole family. I got out of the car. My father got out. He put a suitcase down next to me. He shook my hand. He said, "This will make a man out of you." He got in the car, and everybody drove off. I was like standing, 12 years old, 5 feet tall, 104 pounds, clueless. And all of a sudden, I'm going to be a man now. Great. Family drove off. Fact is, I was given an opportunity for a wonderful education. Feeling was that I just got thrown away, and I had no idea why. People who knew me best in the world just threw me away. It was not a comfortable feeling. And I can take that kind of pain for like 72 hours tops, right? So, after about 3 days of that, I thought, fine, I did the break. I made the break. I just said, fine, you don't want me, I don't want you. So I disassociated myself from my family, and I never went back. And I needed some tools for living. I had none. I was 12 years old. What tools do you need? What tools do you need to live? You know what I mean? They say, get up, eat, go to school. They ask you questions there, you answer them, you go home, they say eat, study, go to bed. You do those things, and everything goes pretty well, I didn't need tools for living. I needed them in this place. So I'm walking around. My first tool for living I got from a guy named Tiny. Every high school's got a guy named Tiny. He's like 6'4", 240, plays guard on the football team, biggest guy in the school. I'm the littlest guy in the school. Turns out I'm the youngest, and the littlest guy had 250 young men from all over the world. It was like Lord of the Flies in this place, right? They had scoured the earth to find 250 of the most disturbed young boys they could find. And threw them down in this campus, and there we were, and I was the youngest and the smallest. I was up and coming. Tiny found me. I didn't find Tiny. And he just said, hey, he came up to me and said, "How you doing, punk?" And he slapped me in the back of the head, sent my books flying and me flying. And I got up and I hit him as hard as I could. Now, this was the first time I'd ever hit anybody in my life. This is like an out-of-body experience that I'm having here. You know what I mean? Where I'm watching myself slug this guy, and in my head, it's like going, don't do this. This is stupid. And I hit him, and it did nothing to him. And I just stood there looking up at this big guy, and he looked down at me and he said, "You got a lot of guts, kid." And then he beat the crap out of me right on the spot. And as I'm taking this beating, I'm thinking, this is going all right. It's working out all right. I mean, I'd taken the beatings before. What was important to me was I was absolutely terrified of this guy. I was terrified of Tiny. But he had just said, you got a lot of guts. My violence had masked the fact that I was afraid. First tool for living, violence works. If you're jumping on them, they're not sitting there thinking, gee, how frightened this guy is. They're trying to defend themselves. They're busy. They don't have time to think that. So then word spread across the campus in like 30 minutes. Watch out for this little Hightower kid. He's a maniac. He attacked Tiny, right? So now I got this reputation as this little maniac, and this has absolutely nothing to do with who I am. Nothing to do with who I am. I'm a frightened kid, who wants his mommy. You know what I mean? And these guys are coming around going, hey, he's a tough guy. He's a bad guy. We need to hang with this guy, right? So this guy came by and said, you want to smoke a joint? And I said, yeah. I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. I had no idea what that was. All I knew was he was saying, you want to come with us? And the answer was yes. It wouldn't have made any difference where they were going. I needed to hook up. I was alone in the universe, as far as I could tell. I'm going with these guys. So we picked up Steve on the way, and Steve had a Tupperware container wrapped in tin foil. And we went out behind the dorm, and you could tell by the way Steve was opening this thing up that what was in here was very important. And he opened it up, and it was this Tupperware container full of cheap red wine. And Matt lit this joint and took a hit and handed it to me, and I just did what he did, and then the wine came around. I took a pull on the wine, and this was going on. I'm standing here looking at Matt and Steve. I have no idea what we're doing, no idea why we're doing this. All I know is that there's three of us now instead of just me, right? So I'm watching this going. They're 13. They're like teenagers, right? That doesn't mean anything to anybody but a 12-year-old, right? Man, a great deal to me. I'm hanging with teenagers, you know what I mean? I got things are looking up. And then, all of a sudden, all of a sudden, just the magic happened. That feeling kind of came up out from my feet, and it was wafted up over me. And for the first time in my long, lonely 12 years of living, I knew everything was going to be just fine. I never felt that before. I had never felt comfortable standing where I was standing, doing what I was doing with the people I was doing it with. Am I starting to sound like you? Is it happening already? This guy nods, just goes, yeah, you're starting to do it. My family's from like Oklahoma and Texas, you know what I mean? So anytime I come this way, and I hear guys talk like the gentleman who led this meeting, guys who talk like that, it just starts happening to me, By the time I leave, it'll be, I'll be talking like, bye y'all, it's good to be here. And I get home and people say to me, what happened to you? What are you talking about? It happens to me. I don't know what it is. Maybe it just feels better. So anyway, it was the secret to life as far as I was concerned. It was the thing that made me feel like everything was all right. And what I have to remember at this point in my recovery is that, or at any point in my recovery, is that I paid no price for that. No price at all. Woke up the next morning, felt fine. Thought, this is great. You can take this stuff and put it in your body and feel better than you've ever felt in your life. And there are no consequences. That was the information I had. Nobody said, it wasn't like, as I'm thinking, this is great. It didn't think, and in about 16 years, you're going to wish you could die. Or in 16 years, you're going to be sick of going to the nut houses, sick of getting shot at. Don't want to get stabbed anymore. You want the violence in your life to stop. You want the madness between your ears to just let up for a second. That's what's going to happen. Everything that's of value and dear to you is going to just be erased. I don't know if you'd have told me that then, I don't know if it would have slowed me down a lick. I don't know. All I know is that there wasn't any of that information. It just looked great. There was no downside to this thing. I'm doing this as often as I possibly can. And that was a humble beginning for me. A little pot and a little wine, and I was off. Now, I talk about drugs in my story because I'm a child of the 60s. That's what we were focused on. We were focused on drugs. Our parents were the alcoholics. We weren't going to drink ourselves to death like our parents did. We were going to kill ourselves in a whole new way. That's what we were interested in. Identify as an alcoholic because in the end for me, nothing worked but alcohol. In the end for me, the last drunk I took was 4.5 years long. And I ended up in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I identify as an alcoholic, but drugs led me to alcohol and alcohol led me here. And those were my humble beginnings. The reason that The reason that I identify as an alcoholic and I drank is that, when we were in the 60s and we were focused on all these drugs and stuff, we thought we were pretty hip, slick, and cool, and we were real different than the drunks. And we were better than, and we were cool and fashionable and hip and all that. But I'll tell you the truth. The truth is that drugs are extremely unreliable. And booze is extremely reliable. And that is why whatever else was on that table back in those days, there'd be heroin one day, cocaine the next, pills the next, whatever. There's only one thing that was always on that table every single day, no matter what else was going on, and that was a fifth of booze. There was always booze on the table for us. And my explanation for that is because it's reliable. You never knew what you were getting with drugs. I mean, they're completely unreliable. There's no quality control going on out there. Absolutely none. You go get yourself a fifth of Jack Daniels, you know what you got. You can count on that. You do a little bit too much cocaine, you can't get your mouth open anymore. Don't worry about it. You just suck a little gin through your teeth to shake it right off. You can go right back to the party. You don't have to worry. Not enough heroin to get you through the night? Don't worry. Jack Daniels will get you the rest of the way. Jack will get you the rest of the way. LSD a little too spooky this evening? Don't worry about it. Little gin will get you back in the comfort zone. Don't worry. Just start slugging on that gin. Booze is reliable. Anyway, so those are the humble beginnings. 13 was pills, any kind of pills. And the only reason I took pills because somebody said, would you like a pill? And I said, well, yeah. I took a pill. 20 minutes later, I was on the floor, and I was very happy down there. And they said, and I would say, excuse me, what was that? And they'd tell me, and I'd write that down. I need to ask for that by name. 14 was psychedelics. About 650 acid trips later, I was classified legally insane by the military. That's another story. 15, I started shooting dope, not because I was a tough guy or a bad guy or a crazy man, simply because a woman walked up to me and said, would you like me to stick this in your body? And I said, yeah. And she did, and I did this. And on the way down, I just remember thinking, oh, yeah. This'll work. 16, I started going to mental institutions. I dropped out of high school. My father came back in my life and said, you've obviously lost your mind, threw me in a mental institution. First time was for 3 months of observation and a year of rehabilitation. I remember thinking that was kind of excessive. And they had, they give you 3 cups of pills a day, and if you acted out a little too much, you got a shot. So every day was just about figuring out a new way to act out so we could get the shot. You know what I mean? It had nothing to do with straightening things out. And I didn't like it in there, and I decided one day to escape. My big deal in there was just wanted to escape. And they had those, like that, those exit signs, like that red one right there, except they were green. And I thought, that sums it right up. That's what I just want to exit. I went out. And I see this, I'm shuffling around this place on weeks on end, and I would eat all my meals with this woman named Kilday. Kilday was really crazy. Kilday was great. Kilday, you just say a couple of things to Kilday real fast, and she'd just start spinning like a top. So I had all my meals with Kilday because every meal was like dinner and a show. You know what I mean? You like eat a little stuff and watch Kilday snap. So I used Kilday as my diversion and when I decided to make my big break. And I was sitting in my chair. And I remember I've been shuffling around this hospital for weeks on end. And I don't know what's in those cups of pills. Right? So I'm thinking I'm going to make my big move out of the cafeteria. So I get Kilday spinning, and I get her spinning in that direction, right? I go, ready, go! And I'm hauling ass. That's all I've got. That's as fast, arms are working and everything. And I'm like looking down going, hey, I'm not going very fast. And you hear from the nurse's station out over the loudspeaker, you hear, Edmund, you got a minute? You want to grab Earl? He's making a break for the door. And Ed's in there eating a sandwich going, yeah, I'll get him in a minute. Tools for living. If you're going to get thrown in the mental institutions, you got to get out before they get the Thorazine in you. Because if you don't, you leave when they say. This stuff is serious, man. The Thorazine shuffle, that was my introduction to that. So I did that. So the next time I got thrown in the nut house, I escaped the first day. It's a place called the Westwood. Spooky place, man. I escaped the first day, and as I blasted out of that joint, I'm moving, those bells are going off and whistles, and there's this guy chasing me, and we're going across this backyard, and I'm heading for this 12-foot, ivy-covered, chain-link fence. I can see it like it was yesterday. I'm like 16 and a half, 17 years old. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. I'm a high school dropout. I'm at any moment, hopefully, an escaped mental patient. That's my resume. You know what I mean? This is what I have to say for myself. This is all I got. And I'm thinking, if I make that fence, I don't have a problem. I don't have any problem, because I'll be drunk in 20 minutes. And that's all that counts. That's all that counts. Because I drink no matter what. My neck of the woods, they tell newcomers, just don't drink no matter what. I personally hate that. I hate that. I guarantee you, if I could drink no matter what, no way I'm in South Carolina. No way. I don't know you people. Why the hell would I want to do that? Could be home channel surfing right now. Hanging out, talking to my friends. You know, calling up my sponsor. Listening to my guys I sponsor complain. Call me and complain. I could be doing that. I'd be at home just not drinking no matter what. You know, we can go to meetings. What for? Why would I go to AA meetings? Why? Read the book? Please. Do step 4? Now you're high if you think I'm going to do step 4. Why would I do that? Take a phone call from an alcoholic at 3 o'clock in the morning? Be inconvenienced in any way, shape, or form by another alcoholic? What the hell for? I'd just be home not drinking no matter what. Because I could do that. I could just drink no matter... No, I'm not drinking. Wow, how are you doing that? Just not drinking no matter what. But see, that just completely misses the point. On the flip side of that, it's like saying, just say no to me. You've missed the point when you say that. I drink no matter what. Given a good reason, I do not stop. That's the difference between me and the problem drinker. You give a problem drinker a good reason to stop, actually can do it. I know that's hard for you to believe. It was for me too. But they can. Problem drinker gets a drunk driving charge. Goes before the judge. The judge says, you know what, I'm sick of seeing you. I see you again, you're doing a year. We're not going to talk about it, no discussion, a year. Flat. The whole year. No time off for good behavior. The end of 365 days in jail, you come back to me and we'll talk again. Problem drinker says, well, I don't want to go to jail. Actually stops drinking and driving. Me, I start wondering what it's going to be like in jail. Because I'm going to jail. I know I'm going to jail. I just say thank you very much, Honor, for the information. You know what I mean? I can prepare myself now for the fact that I'm going to jail. And on and on and on and on. I mean, you give a guy like that a good reason to stop, he can do it. I can't do that. I was never able to do that. I got so many reasons, and I'm not talking about those subliminal, off the side of the road, small little seed out of the corner of your eye kind of, indications that maybe drinking's not really going real well for you, Earl. I don't mean those. I mean like the big neon lit up billboard right up over the overpass as you're driving down the freeway. Big, huge billboard that says, you can't drink like the normal individual. Thank you. I don't even touch the brake, man. Just right by. Any good reason. Can't do it. Can't do it. It didn't matter to me. The denial was in full effect. I mean, I knew I was an alcoholic, referred to myself as an alcoholic and a drug addict years before I stopped. I was comfortable with that. I wasn't the slightest bit ashamed of it. It's who I am. You live your life, I'll live mine. Anyway, 16 was the nut house that started. I spent 3 years out on the street after I escaped. It was interesting, that hospital that I escaped from, I've since done business with that hospital. And I'm in a business meeting with the administrator of the hospital, and he kept saying, your name is familiar. He kept saying, well, that's a familiar name, And I didn't want to say anything, and at the end of the meeting, we were standing outside, and he was a really nice guy, and he was the same administrator. He'd been there for 15 years, 16 years at that point. And I just had to tell him, I said, I got to tell you, I escaped from here 16 years ago. That's why my name is familiar to you. And he just sort of stood there, kind of looked at me, kind of curious, and he just said, well, I'm glad to see you're doing so well. I said, yeah, things are good, man, thanks. And we did business after that. He was willing to do business. I don't know, maybe he felt like he owed me something. I don't know. Anyway, by the time I was 20, I'd ended up in college. Weird. I went on an interview. I decided, I met this woman. We talked for 20 minutes at the party. It went well. We were in love. we moved right in. We were living together. And I thought, I don't really do anything except, drink. I'm in like a relationship, apparently, And Rosemary was a nice woman. Rosemary just used to look at me with her mouth hanging open, things that I would do. And I said, well, I'll go to college. And there was an interview. Was a guy in town who was doing interviews for a prestigious business college in Northern California. So I went and got an interview, and I went and I talked to this guy, and he was a musician, so I was a musician. His favorite color was blue. I said, that's incredible. My favorite color is blue. I just lined right up with this guy. You know how we do. End of an hour, this guy said, you're going to be a wonderful addition to our campus in the fall. I said, I'll see you there. And I walked out there one more time thinking, how am I going to do this? You know what I mean? I don't even have a high school diploma. These guys want like transcripts and stuff, So I went to my father. I said, I know, money talks, right? So I went to my father and I said, listen, I got accepted to college. Don't ask. Business college, yeah, I'd appreciate that. Going to college. Write me a check for the tuition for the year, and I'm leaving town. To which my father replied, beautiful. Wrote me a check. And me and the lovely Rosemary piled all our belongings and 8 pounds of hash in the back of this truck and drove to Northern California to higher learning. And I walked in and handed them a check for a year's tuition and said the transcripts are in the mail, and they said, fine. Took the check, went down to the local high school, signed up for the GED program, so I was going to college during the day, going to high school at night, did my GED program. Rosemary got a straight job, and I became a drug dealer. I didn't know how to do anything else. I had no morals or ethics to get in the way of doing this. You know what I mean? I had no sense of family. I hadn't been a part of a family since I was 12 years old. I had no sense of community. I had no sense of belonging to any kind of a group or organization or fellowship or, I didn't think in terms of anybody else. I was a totally self-centered, alcoholic, fear-centered human being. It was not within my ability to think about you or consider you or be involved with you in any way. It was just all about me. Trying to find my way through the world, struggling the way I knew how to struggle. So I got the high school diploma, and I'm in the college, and I'm studying marketing and production and distribution, and I'm applying this to my business, and business is booming, and I think college is great, and Rosemary's saying things like I'm too high. Ridiculous thing to say. No, thank you, I've had enough. Saying things like this to me that make me realize I'm with the wrong woman. So we sent her back to L.A., and I got to use the way I do. And when I was 20 years old, they diagnosed me to have malignant cancer. So I flew back to L.A., and they told me I was going to die. And they told my family I was going to die. And they did this major surgery thing on my back and put me in the chemotherapy. They called nuclear medicine, is what they called it then. And they kept injecting me with this glow-in-the-dark stuff, and I just didn't like it. I didn't like the way their drugs. So I just said, screw it, I'm not doing this anymore. And I went home and I got high the way I do, which was maniacal at that point. And I beat the cancer thing. I beat it. And I'm firmly convinced that the way I was using, I was so toxic in those days that basically cancer could not live in my body. I outgunned cancer. Went back up north, went back to school. My mother called me and said, listen, we haven't been anywhere as a family in 10 years. I said, yeah, what's your point? And she said, well, we need to do that. And she was crying. She said, look, we'll go anywhere you want to go for your birthday. Let's just go as a family. I said, all right. So I flew back to L.A. And we took off to fly to Guadalajara, and on the way there, the plane crashed. And my mother, my father, and my little sister were all killed, and I wasn't. And I woke up on this mountain in Mexico, and my mother was laying over there, my father was laying right over there, my little sister was over there, and my skull was fractured, my back was broken in 3 places, my arm was crushed, my leg was all torn to pieces. I was paralyzed from the waist down, and I was awake. The only thing I could move was my right arm. And I watched, there was nothing I could do, I couldn't move, and I just watched them all bleed to death. And I pretty much quit the game right there. I had it was just a real quiet decision in my head. I quit. There's no need for the facade anymore. I don't need to be doing all these things on the outside to make it okay for me to drink and use the way I want to drink. I don't have to pretend anymore. I have no interest in a God that would take my little sister, who was just a wonderful, kind, gentle, artistic, creative human being, or my mother, who was great. My mother was great. loved me unconditionally. And and loving me was tough. But she just I was her boy, I was her son. And she loved me. And I loved her. Those women I loved. Me and my father, it was, toe to toe. It was the way we were. We were way too much alike. And I thought any God that would take them and leave a lying, cheating, thieving, dope fiend, alcoholic like me on the planet, I have no interest in a God like that. I renounced God. A little while later, some guys came up and scavenged the plane wreck and took the wallet out of my pocket, took the money out of my pocket, scavenged stuff around and left me up, and then they split and left me up on the mountain to die. I had no more use for you anymore either, so I was out of the game. There wasn't anybody else for me to play with. I had no interest in you. I had no interest in God. I was out of it. I just thought, I'm going to get off this mountain alive, and I'm going to use till I die. And I made it off that mountain. They took me down to a Red Cross station, Mexican Red Cross station, and the guys, they stopped the truck, and they tagged my right toe. They tagged me as dead and sat down and started smoking cigarettes. I was laying in this truck next to my dead mother, watching the fleas jump, and yelling at these guys till they finally got back in the truck and took me to a hospital. And they kept me in this hospital for 3.5 days under guard by federales, interrogating me through an interpreter, and wouldn't give me anything for pain, wouldn't do any kind of medical treatment at all. I just lay there all busted up, passing in and out, and nothing for the pain. The reason they were interrogating me had to do with another little matter in Mexico that we don't need to get into right now. Needless to say, they were surprised to see me back in their country. And we talked it over for a few days, and then they plastered me from the neck down and shipped me back to the States like a package. You can have them. And I spent a long time in a hospital up in the States in Southern California, and they said that I'd probably have a withered left hand because of the nerve damage in my arm. I may or may not walk again. That was up for grabs. I had massive infections and broken bones, and thought I'd be blind in my left eye. And quite a while later, I walked out of there under my own power. I was an angry guy. I was very angry. And I went on my last run, and it lasted for 4.5 years. Had no interest in drugs because I kept ODing all the time, trying to get those pictures out of my head. I kept ODing. I got to the point, I OD'd so many times. There was guys in UCL. They put me in the ambulance one more time, and the attendant looked down and go, "Hi, Earl." I was getting known in the wrong circles, you know what I mean? They'd take me to the emergency rooms and pump my stomach, and I could talk to the guy while he pumped my stomach. He'd run the tube up the nose and went down the throat and pump away, and I'd just talk to the guy and tell him, man, I'm having a bad day. And one day I came out of the nightmares one more time, and I ran down the basement. I grabbed a fifth of Jane Bean, I drank it down, went into the blackout, and when I came to, like 2 days later, I hadn't had any of the pictures in my head, no bad dreams, no nightmares, none of that stuff. Booze did the trick. And so I gave up drugs like that. Easy. Alcohol was what I was after. I used cocaine to keep me on my feet so that I could drink the way I wanted to drink. It was all about drinking for me, and I drank for another 4.5 years. I drew sober breath on 3 different occasions for 72 hours each during that 4.5 years, and that was because I was strapped to a table. I'd go in those little detoxes. I'd get so sick I couldn't drink anymore. They'd strap me to a table, shoot me full of anticonvulsants, and 72 hours later, they'd either send you to the morgue or send you home. These little sanitariums in Hollywood, they were interesting. $150 cash. Not your licensed medical facility, you know what I mean? And I'd swear to God, it's me again. If you get me out of this sane and alive, I will never, ever, 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 ever drink again as long as I live. I can't take this anymore. I can't take it. And I'd get up off that table after 72 hours, and I'd go back to the nurse's station and give me back my Valium and my car keys and my wallet, my gun if I had one. Whatever I had with me, they'd just give it all back to me and say, "No, Earl, don't drink anymore." I'd say, "No, ma'am. I can't do this anymore." And on the way to the car, I'd take 30, 40 milligrams of Valium just to get the shake off me so I could drive the car. And then I'd come out of the blackout 4 days later in another town. Because on the way home, I'd stop at a bar. See, the thing for me was, it wasn't about stopping for me. I stopped thousands of times. I'd stop 3, 4, 5 times in a day. Through. Tricks for me is I didn't know how to not start again. I'd always start again. Always. Within a 24-hour period, I would start again. I didn't know how not to do that. Didn't know anything about it. Didn't know what alcoholism was. Knew I was an alcoholic. Didn't understand the disease. Didn't know anything about it. I was just dying of it. By the time I came out of my last blackout, I was 28 years old. I was 215 pounds. I was yellow. I was dying of alcoholism, and I don't say that loosely. I had been to a couple of doctors to find out why I was feeling so bad. And they said, "You're an alcoholic and you're dying. You're going to die. You're going to die this year, Earl, if you don't stop drinking." And I just remember thinking, okay, then that's what I'm going to do. Because I don't know how to be here any other way. Never known how to be. I've been like this since I was 12 years old. Don't know anything else about it. Came out of my last blackout, dying of alcoholism. Yellow, psychotic, couldn't distinguish between the true and the false. Didn't know. I'd come to and think, did I think that? Did I dream that? Did somebody tell me that? Did I do that? I didn't know. I mean, it was just all this big blur. I had almost 700 stitches in me. I'd broken 75 bones. My family was dead. I had no friends. I had no place to live. It was over. It was over. I burned my life to the ground. And I threw up 2 broken hands this day. I don't know how I broke them, but they were broken. And I just said, help. And they took me by ambulance one more time to one place, and they said, get him out of here. And they took me to another place and kept me 5 days. Said, he's getting worse, get him out of here. And they took me by ambulance to another place, and they kept me for 12 more days of detox and a 30-day free bed rehab program. And I left there, and I knew one thing. If I drink, I die. That was it. If I didn't want to die, I better go to Alcoholics Anonymous. So I went to Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't come here because I wanted what you had. I didn't know what you had. I just knew that I couldn't live with what I had anymore. And I went and I sat in the back with my arms folded, my best tough guy look on my face, so y'all stay away from me. And the old timers did. Because I was, hair out like this, beard out like this, and psychotic look in my eye, Still a little yellow. I sat in the back like, yeah? What? Terrified. Absolutely terrified, because none of my tools for living worked anymore. And all the old timers went, brother, there's a cup of coffee for you right over there, and there's a seat right over there. Glad you're here. Welcome. And they did that from about 20 to 30 feet away. Because they knew who I was. They knew that I was a very, very frightened individual, and you just don't run up on people like that. Things can happen that nobody wants to have happen. I'm not a tough guy or a bad guy. I never have been, and I never will be. But there were times in my life, the violence in my life was extreme. I've been shot at, stabbed twice. Crazy. It got crazy. Only because I was very frightened. Very frightened. And I forced people to shoot at me and stuff, I don't blame any of those guys. I don't blame any of them. I'll blame the one guy who stabbed me in the leg. I blame that guy. Right? He stabbed me right after I said, excuse me. You know what I mean? What kind of social behavior is that? Anyway. So I'm sitting in the back, but meetings have new guys who don't see it the same way. You know what I mean? They got 6, 8, 9 months of sobriety. They just caught fire with Alcoholics Anonymous. And they're giving it away tonight. And what they see is a new guy. And I got mine was at the meeting. His name was Vegas, and he saw me and he went, ah, and he came at me, man, with his hand out, and he was smiling, and he was, I just remember sitting there thinking, oh no, look at this guy's coming at me. He's smiling. I hate that. He's all shiny and combed, and oh man. He came up and he said, hi, I'm Vegas, I'm an alcoholic. And I said, so what? Me too, man. It ain't exactly the highlight of my life. I don't know what you're so happy about. Get away from me. Go away. And he looked at me and he looked deep into my eyes. And it was like everything kind of got real still. And there was a couple of guys everybody froze. And looking, Vegas going to lay it on him now. And he looked right at me and he leaned over and he said, keep coming back. I looked at him and went, great, thank you. Thank you. I'll keep coming back. I feel much better now. You guys feeling good too? I'm sure with 3 o'clock when I'm losing my mind, that's going to help. I'll feel better with that keep coming back thing. Because it's clear that, by the look on your face and those buffoons standing behind you, that you all seem to see that there's some deep spiritual significance to this keep coming back thing. I'm the only guy here, clearly, that doesn't know what that is. So, once again, I'm the loser. You win. I'm feeling very much a part of now. Thank you very much for the keep coming back thing. I'll use it often. I hate this AA thing already. I hate this AA thing. If you're new, and somebody walks up to you and says, hey, keep coming back. or one day at a time. Or my personal favorite, hey, turn it over. All right? If they start laying those little AA ditties on you, step up to the plate, man. Just step up and say, excuse me. I don't understand the deep spiritual significance of keep coming back. Would you mind expanding on that for me a little bit? I don't know about around here, but where I'm from, if they're honest, about 80% of them would say, you know what, I'd love to, but I don't have any idea what it means either. You know what I mean? I came in, they said it to me. You come in, I said it to you. I have no, There's a guy over there that reads the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Maybe he knows what the hell that means. Let's go ask him. I mean, just ask him, you know what I mean? Because we'll sling it in here, you know what I mean? We're good at it. If it's, you come off the street, you come in, you think, what's the first thing you got to understand? Not in the heart and soul of the thing, not the guts of it. You got to get the rap down. Got to get the lingo. Give me the verbiage, man. Tell me what the words are around here. I'll start walking in these rooms going, yeah, how you doing, brother? Keep coming back, man. Yeah, sober all day long. One day at a time, bro. Good. Cool. Talk to your sponsor? Yeah. Hey, 10, 11, and 12, brother. 10, 11, and 12. I have no idea what I'm talking about. None. It's ridiculous, man. Absolutely ridiculous. I watch guys doing it. I tell the guys I sponsor, I watch them do it, man. And they swing it by me. They roll it by me to see how it's going to fly. I love it. I love sitting there and just pulling the car over. One guy I got to tell you this. One guy had in and out, recovery this. Finally, really got beaten to death out there, right? And he's back in one more time. And he's really earnest. And he's meetings and he's I said, go pick that guy up. You go pick the guy up. He just never, ever even blinked at any request that was made of him that involved being in a meeting. Every day he's in a meeting, twice a day. Just doing it. He just really, I started to have hope for this guy, It's a dangerous thing, man. I started having hope for a newcomer. I was having hope for this guy. Oh, this is good. And we got in the car one day, and there it was. Earl. And he started, he just started with the words, one day at a time, brother. We just got to do this one day at a time. And, I've turned my will and my life over to the care of God. And, step 4, I did the resentment. And he just blah, 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 and he just see his mouth going like this, right? And we were on the freeway and we were going to another meeting. We were going to a meeting, right? And all of a sudden I thought, so I just headed for downtown Los Angeles. It was like, just veered this way instead of that way. All of a sudden we're downtown. Got off. Next thing you know, we're in Skid Row. And he goes, all of a sudden, he's just talking. He didn't even notice, right? And I'm sitting at a street light, and there's like 60 guys on a street corner right here, right? Smoking crack on Skid Row. And Skid Row in L.A. is a sight to behold, all right? This is unbelievable. Fires burning in the streets. It's like a city within a city. And it's all out on the street. And it's just tombstones in everybody's eyes. It's unbelievable. And there's like 60 brothers over here on this corner smoking crack. And this little white kid, is about 5'2", says, what are we doing here? And I said, get out. And his eyes got real big and I said, what? I said, get out, man. I said, if you're going to do that, let's just save everybody a lot of time and a lot of trouble and just go over there on the corner with those guys and do what you got to do. Because you know it's where you're going to end up. The minute you start talking this shit, inevitably we end up back here. So just get out of my car. And the light turned green. And I didn't go. And he just said, and he goes, aren't you going to go? I said, no, I'm waiting for you to get out of the car. Because I figured, you're at the fork in the road, partner. You got 2 choices here. A life based on spiritual principles, and that'll be hanging with me and doing the work as it's found in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Or you can try and blot it out, like the book says, and go where that takes you. Go on. Get out of my car. I'm sick of you. He said, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Finally, we took off and we ended up in the meeting. He's sober still. He's sober still. That was probably the most fun I ever had at the expense of a new guy. That was really a lot of fun. The look on his face. I never seen anybody's eyes get that big. So anyway, where the hell were we? I ended up in meetings. First meeting, I got lucky. I got shot. Guy got up and he shared. And he was 65 years old. He was a Skid Row bum. He was an alcoholic. He was an ex-wino. He was a boxer. And I thought, I'm none of those things. Boxer. The hell, boxer? Get a gun. Get a gun. Box. It's ridiculous. You're 11-0. You keep talking to me like that, you're 11-1. I got a gun right here. Wino. I never drank wine unless there was nothing else to drink. Skid Row bum. I wasn't a Skid Row bum. I couldn't find Skid Row. I'd have gone there. There's something very comforting to a guy like me about the idea. You go get yourself a fifth of gin, and you go sit in a doorway, and you crack it open, and you start drinking your gin. If you're on Skid Row, nobody comes up to you and says, hey, what are you doing? The hell are you doing? It's 9 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing? Down there, it's just, oh, look at that lucky guy. He's got a whole fifth of gin by himself over there. They're trying to make friends with you. They're not bothering you. But the beautiful thing was, and I noticed the differences between me and you. I don't look for the similarities. If I notice similarities between us, I got to pay attention to you. I don't want to do that. I want to notice the differences between you and me so I can get the hell out of here, so I don't have to listen to you, so I don't have to take anything you've got to say into consideration. Spot them like that. If you're a woman, you don't know about me. Two different worlds. Men and women, two different worlds. You don't know anything about me. Black, you don't know anything about me. Hispanic, don't know anything about me. Gay, you don't know anything about me. 5 years older than me, 5 years younger than me, you come up through another deal. You don't know about me. I just spot it like that, man, so I don't have to listen to you. Luckily...
Stop your machine and turn your tape over at this time.
Robbed me of all of that. If you're in this room, you know everything you need to know about me. Common problem, common solution. That's the 80% of my life right there. I mean, everything else kind of falls under those headings. All of my life at this point. I got it so good that I could circle the wagon so tight around me that by the time I got to AA, if you weren't Earl, you didn't know about me. I could find a difference between you and me like that. And I sat in the back and I knew this guy didn't know anything about me. The beautiful thing was that I had destroyed my life. I had nowhere else to go. Where was I going to go? I had to sit there and listen to this guy. And he changed it for me. That guy talked openly and honestly about his feelings as a man. And he talked about how he'd wake up in the morning with his head just chewing on him. And he would get up, suit up, go to work an honest day's work, go get something to eat, go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, not to take, but to give, to be of service to the new guys coming into the room. And then he would go out to coffee with these guys, and then he would go home and he would get in bed. Head chewing on him the whole way. No wreckage. Using the tools that Alcoholics Anonymous had given him. That amazed me. I thought that was amazing. And then it was like he looked right at me and he said, you know what? I don't care whether you like what I got to say or not. You don't like it? Go to another meeting. I loved that. I did. I loved that. Because it made it clear to me, this guy's not selling me this deal. He's sharing it with me. If I want it, I can have it. If I don't want it, fine, go to another meeting. Maybe somebody else will say something I can use. I left there thinking, this is cool. I'm coming back. I left there with something I had not had for years that I think is the most important thing any alcoholic can give another alcoholic. That guy gave me hope. I came in a low-bottom, hopeless, dope fiend alcoholic with nowhere else to go. And when in my first meeting, a gentleman shared, and I left there with some hope that maybe I didn't have to start again. Maybe. And I came back, and I've been coming back ever since my sobriety date's November 6, 1980. And so 15 years now, I've been coming every day. And I've never had to go back out. I've never had to take another drink, use anything that was mind-altering at all. And and the path has been remarkable for a guy like me. I came in here torn to pieces. I never took a chip. I didn't take a cake until I was 3 years sober. I didn't take a chip until I didn't open my mouth. I never shared until I was 2.5 years sober. I was destroyed. And it was a slow go for me. And I just did the things that I heard that you needed to do. Guys would get at the podium and they would say, you need to go to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. Everybody that we ever talk to that goes out and comes back, and we ask them, what happened? They say, well, the first thing was I stopped going to meetings. So go to meetings. It's a pretty good indication that it's a good idea to go to meetings. So go to them. It's where you meet your fellows. I can't get sober, but we can. Hang with your fellows. Go to meetings. All right? You should probably read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because that's the program. This is the fellowship. That's the program. Know the difference. Both vital to your recovery. Okay. Once you have a spiritual awakening as a result of doing the stuff that's outlined in that book, you best give it away and be of service, because you can't keep it unless you give it away. That made no sense to me, but I said, okay. None of it made any sense to me when they said it to me. I mean, they said, here, I went in, I got a sponsor. I got a vicious sponsor. The late, great Donald Madden. Amazing human being. One of the finest examples of Alcoholics Anonymous that ever lived. Died July 25th, 1994, with 23 years of sobriety. Being of service on a daily basis. Died meditating. Died doing his morning meditation, which was the right and proper way for that guy to go. Get up, suit up for another day, sit down to do his morning meditation, and leave. Beautiful human being. Broke my heart when he died. I was with him for almost 14 years. That's longer than I've ever been with anybody, including my family. He was my family to me. He was the one, he's how come I know there's a God. Because God came to me through Donald Madden. When Donald Madden came to me and said, yeah, I'll be your sponsor. You don't have to like what I tell you. You don't have to think it's a good idea. You just have to do it. I said, all right, I can probably work around that. I couldn't. We went to a meeting and he said, they make 550 cups of coffee here every Friday night and you're going to make them for the next year. I said, bullshit. You don't seem to understand. I'm losing my mind here, pal. I sleep like an hour a night. It's real spooky what goes through my head those other 23 hours. My whole plan every day is to get tired enough to get that hour's sleep. That's all I'm about. The violence could break out at any moment, man, I'm telling you. You've seen the scars. It's coming. I'm telling you, we're all in serious trouble. It's bad. This is very bad. I'm awake. It's bad. And your response to this is, make a little coffee. I don't think you understand what I'm going through. And he said, fine, then drink. I said, you see, there's no talking to you people. Trying to have a conversation with you and you just cut right to this drinking thing again. There's no point in talking to you. He could have said to me, fine, Earl, fine. What we're going to do here is we're going to ask you to make the coffee. But it's not about making coffee. It's not that you're the new guy, so we're going to give you the grunt job. We're going to give you the greatest gift we've got to give you within the fellowship. We're going to give you an opportunity to manifest in your life one of the greatest spiritual principles afoot on earth. Anywhere. Forget just Alcoholics Anonymous. Anywhere. We are going to give you the opportunity to be of service, to get out of self. We've watched you. We've heard who you are, Earl. You're one of the most self-centered human beings we've ever met in our life. You probably never thought about anybody but you your entire life. These are true. So we're going to give you this opportunity to get out of self for 4.5 hours, about what it'll take from start to finish, every Friday night. Out of self, out of self. Be of service, out of self. Be of service, out of self. That's what it's going to be. And by the time you get back to you at the end of that 4.5 hours, it's going to be a little bit different. And you're going to come back to you and the living of your life with a little different perspective. It's going to be a good thing all the way around. He could have said that to me and I would have just said, huh? So he said it in language that a newcomer like me could understand. He said, do it or drink. Okay, I'll do it then, because I don't want to do the drinking thing. I don't get it at all. 6 months into that commitment, I was feeling better. That was Donald Madden. I went to his door at 7 o'clock every morning and said, I'm up. What do we do now? And he had this big factory down on Pico and Orange. And he said, you and some of the other guys get some scaffolding and some paint and some equipment and paint the outside of this factory. I said, great. So we painted this factory every day. And he'd give me some money and I'd get something to eat. And I'd go to a meeting and I'd get some sleep and I'd come back in the morning and I'd paint on the factory. I mean, these other guys just like ants around this thing. We got the outside done. I was terrified. He said, paint the inside of the factory. Oh, good. So we went in and we painted the inside of the factory. When we were done, he said, you know how to paint. Go get a job. But do you see what he did? Do you see what he did? Do you see how he went so far beyond anything that could ever be expected of a sponsor? He gave me a way to go out in the world now and earn a decent wage. All my marketing and all that stuff. I mean, I was in no shape to go into the business world. He gave me I went out and I got a job working for a house painter. A guy named Cecil. I meet Cecil at 6 o'clock in the morning. I mean, ready. And we'd paint. And I would just paint. And it was like a blank screen in front of me all day for all this insanity to pour out. And I'd paint till I hit a corner. And I'd just turn. And I paint. Man, I was a painter. I could paint, man. To this day, things get a little tense, I've got the business life going, all that stuff. A friend of mine will say, man, I need my kitchen painted. I'd say, when do you want me there? It's like therapy, you know what I mean? It's not paint. Anyway, he taught me all the, when I got a job, and then I got an apartment. I got a $325 a month apartment. I was having trouble making my rent. And I had a car that I had to park on a hill because it wouldn't start. I had to roll down the hill and pop started. And I'd go, if the meeting I was at was on flat ground that night, I'd leave it running outside. Leave the car running. Nobody'd steal it. I'd leave it running. I was the only guy in AA that knew I got 2 hours to the gallon on my car. And that was how it started for me, and I stayed, and I did everything that I was supposed to do, and I kicked and screamed the whole way. And every time they told me to do something, I did it. And I got to 6.5 years, and I had a life. Things looked pretty good on the outside. Job had turned into a career, doing some public relations work, got some clothes, got a better car, got a place to live. Things are looking, not worried about paying the rent anymore. Things are good. Going nuts. Old timer said, work the steps or die, you fool. What do you think we've been telling you? Started reading the big book. Found out unity, recovery, and service was an ancient spiritual symbol. Mind, body, and spirit brought together as a whole human being. Therein lied the balance that I had never had in my life, drunk or sober. Alcoholics Anonymous adopted that symbol, and unity is the body, and I bring it here. I can't get sober, but we can. Recoveries of the mind, the greater aspect of my disease. And the recovery of the mind, how do I recover from the mental aspect of my disease, the mental obsession? I work the 12 steps. That's how I don't start again. That's how I'm not starting again. Starting again is this. I get clean and sober and come in here. I mean, if that's all it was, is to put down the drink, and that's it. Put the plug in the jug, and that's it. And don't drink no matter what. If that was true, detox centers would be kicking out winners, man. 72 hours and free. Thanks for stopping by for the weekend, Earl. Have a nice life. That is not how it works for me. I have alcoholism. I have an obsession of the mind. Tells me I can drink like the normal man. Tells me to go out and have a couple of drinks. Persistence of this illusion, this belief in a lie that I can do that, is astonishing. Many of us pursue it to the gates of insanity and death. The book tells me. That's what I will do without relieving myself of the obsession. How do I do that? I work the 12 steps. Step 1 is, what's the problem? Lack of power. It's my dilemma. What's my solution? If lack of power is my problem, what's my solution? Step 2, a power greater than me, going to restore me to sanity, soundness of mind, relieve me of the obsession to drink. Well, knowing that, I'll drink. Well, then it's a program of action. You better do something about it. What should I do? Make a decision to do something about it. Okay, do step 3. I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. How I did that was I got on my knees, I did the 3rd step prayer, and I got back up. Said right after that, you better get the action plan working right away, or this will all be for naught. Fine, what's the action plan? 4 through 9. I'm going to do this inventory of resentment, fear, and sex. 4 columns on each. Step 4. I'm going to read it before God to another human being in 5. I'm going to get a look on paper of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 laying there in black and white right in front of me. All the stuff that I put between me and you and me and God. All the stuff. I'm going to swallow some large chunks of truth about myself in the doing of this. 6 and 7, I'm going to hook it back up with God. 8 and 9, I'm going to hook it back up with you. 10, 11, and 12 are going to keep me in the game. 10, me, I got to keep my side of the street clean. If I'm wrong, promptly admit it. They know who they're talking to. Promptly. Admit it. I'll hang on till June. I'll fester and I'll die a little bit every day between now and then. Cut it loose now. And if I'm busy keeping my side of the street clean, which is a big job, I don't have any time to be worried about your side of the street. Step 11 is my relationship with God. It's an action step. I seek God. How? Through prayer and meditation. What do I pray for? Knowledge of His will for me and the power to carry that out. That's it. I don't pray for her, the car, the money, the house, the career. I don't. Knowledge of His will for me and the power to carry that out. Thy will, not mine, be done. Why do I meditate? To quiet the mind so that when the answers come, I can hear them. Because it's very loud in here a lot of the time. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps. That was the whole point. To be restored to sanity. Have the obsession removed. That was the whole point. I can practice these principles and carry the message. 3rd side of the triangle. Service. Unity is the body, I bring it here. The recoveries of the mind, I work the steps in the book. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of that, I'd be of service to other people. But I can't give away something I don't have. I gotta do the work. And I did all that stuff. And as a result of it, I have a completely different life. I have a completely different view and concept of living on this planet and being with you. And it has nothing to do with me being bright or sophisticated or a good guy or anything. It has to do with that I don't want to drink. That's what it has to do with it. I do it because I want to stay sober. Alcoholics Anonymous, in my opinion, people sum up AA and they say Alcoholics Anonymous is about love. Alcoholics Anonymous is about forgiveness or acceptance or all these things. I disagree. In my opinion, Alcoholics Anonymous is about staying sober. And if a hope-to-die, dope fiend alcoholic like me is going to do that, they tell me there are some suggestions that we would like to make. Yeah, the only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. However, if you would like to stay here, there's a few things we suggest you ought to try and do. And if I actually go ahead and try and do those things, they tell me then, rarely have we seen a person fail who thoroughly followed our path. Thoroughly followed our path. So I do all those things, and you know what I have to bump into if I do that? There's no way around it. I'm going to bump into these things if I do that. I'm going to bump into all kinds of love, and all kinds of acceptance, and all kinds of forgiveness. And I'm going to adopt the code of love and tolerance in my own life. These are the kind of things that are going to happen to a guy like me who's never thought about you, never cared about you, wasn't really interested in even participating with you. That it's going to change it completely. That's the significance of Alcoholics Anonymous to a guy like me. It goes so far past just not drinking and using, it's unbelievable. It really truly is a design for living. It really truly is. If you're new, congratulations. Stick around. You're in for a real treat. And I'll tell you, in my opinion, what I think that treat is. When you were out there drinking and using, you remember that the first drink you took was just the best you ever had. That first time you got drunk and the magic hit you for the first time. And how, if you drank for another 20 years, you chased that feeling. Well, it's the same thing with heroin, and it's the same thing with cocaine, and it's the same thing with anything you can name. And I've been addicted to all of them. I never detoxed, I just retoxed. I just can't get off the couch, I'm doing too much heroin, I'll start doing cocaine, then I can't get out of the closet. You know, so we'll do, barbiturates for a while, you know what I mean? I've been addicted to all that crap. The best buzz is in the beginning and you pay no price for it. In the end, the line's crossed, and in the end, you can't even get off. You can't get high, and you're paying a terrible price. Just trying to get well. Terrible price. In here, it's the exact opposite. Getting that 30-day chip is the toughest thing you'll ever do. I have more respect for a 30-day chip than my 15-year kick by a mile. It's the most amazing thing in Alcoholics Anonymous to me, because you're living in a state of grace. You haven't been here long enough to pick up the tools, really work the tools, find the value in the tools, but somehow you haven't had a drink in 30 days. It's a state of grace. That's all right, and it's hard to get. It doesn't seem that you don't feel a whole lot better at 30 days. A lot of us didn't. But you worked real hard to get it. Tell you what, at 15, I don't have to work as hard. From 14 to 15, I didn't have to work near as hard for that whole year as I did for that first 30 days. I didn't have to work near as hard. And the benefits were phenomenal. What that tells me is the lines have crossed again. Somewhere along this way, this path, the lines have crossed. Now, the price I pay to be here is less and less and less. And the buzz that I get off of being alive, sober, is getting bigger and better and every single day. So what that tells me is this. The biggest buzz I'm going to get is ahead of me. If I stay here, I'm going to know a deeper level of love. The dignity that I experience as a man is going to become more profound. My ability to love you is going to increase. My ability to accept love from you is going to increase. It's just going to get better and better and better. It's the flip side. I never thought it would be that way. I always get it exactly the opposite. I came in here thinking, if I love you, then you're going to love me. I was wrong. I thought if I was honest with you, then you were automatically going to be honest with me. That was my expectation that was put upon that. I was wrong. I'm honest with you and you lie to me. I love you and you don't love me. What the hell's wrong? My expectations, the way things work. If I love you, what happens? The reward, the benefit of my loving you is that I've become a loving man. That's a much greater reward. I didn't even think of that one. If I'm honest with you, the benefit of that for me is that I become an honest man. And I get to live that in here as I walk around the planet, doing what I do. And what ends up happening is that I'm having a ball being Earl. I'm more comfortable being Earl than I've ever been before. And you can come up to me in the line and say, I hate you when you talk about drugs. It makes me sick. And I'll say, God bless you. Have a nice day. I don't care what you think. I'm comfortable being me. I'm having a very good time. You can come up to me and say, hey, you know what? That was a nice talk. Thanks a lot. I said, thank you. That's nice. I'm okay either way. I'm having a nice time. You gave me that. I'm indebted to you. I can never repay the gift that I've been given in Alcoholics Anonymous. I can never repay Donald Madden, ever, for what he gave me, for what that man did for me. That I could love somebody enough to have it break my heart when they die. I didn't care, ever. You left, you left. You died, you died. I didn't care. It's all different for me because a member of Alcoholics Anonymous went the extra mile with me. If you're new, stick around here. Find the people in here that got the fire in their eyes, got the passion for living, love this thing, and aren't afraid to show it to you. Aren't afraid to show it to you. Odds are they're having a very good time living their lives out there. If you're new, please stay. Get yourself a big book and the people in here. And then you're armed to the teeth, man. You got a program and you got fellowship, and you're going to be okay. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Earl H. Once again, you have an incredible story. You have an incredible gift to articulate your story. And I am just thankful that you continue to share your experience, strength, and hope. And if you were listening and enjoyed that, and who wouldn't have enjoyed that or gotten spiritual help from that particular episode, please pause your device and share that episode or the entire podcast with another friend or family member. It may be just what they need today. Now, on a little bit of listener feedback, Mia writes in, and Mia says, by the way, I'm just thinking about this. If Mia is a mama, would her kids call her Mama Mia? I'm so sorry, Mia. Those things just come to my mind. Hopefully, my mind. Hopefully. By the way, I got a little bit of bronchitis here, but for you, the listener, I'm going to work through it. But if you hear me cough, that's what's going on. Anyway, Mia writes in and she says, good morning, John. Well, good morning, Mia, or Mama Mia. She says, I am a New Yorker living in Lexington, Mass. I am a member of OA. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's Overeaters Anonymous. And I have been in and out of the rooms since 1996. I struggle with my food sobriety because of what my brain calls, quote, the nebulous nature of food, unquote, unquote, versus the very concrete nature of alcohol. That's very interesting. Thank you, Mia. She says, my sponsor is in both AA and OA. She is always referencing things she heard in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. She says, in fact, my Ebby, who brought me to OA in 1966, was in AA. He got me to see how my food addiction is exactly like his alcohol addiction. I am just looking for more voices to aid in my recovery. I found SoberSpeak because my sponsor referenced a Patrick B. Yeah, we've had him on the podcast before. Patrick B. in one of our calls. I found SoberSpeak on Podbean, looking for him. So far, that is the only podcast, the only episode that I've listened to where you were, quote, interviewing Patrick. I like the format is different from others I have heard. Thank you for your service, John. In gratitude, Mia J-T. Well, Mia J-T, thank you for letting me have a little fun with your name there. And I'm glad you found us, and I'm glad we can help support you in your recovery journey. Lois writes in. Now, just so everybody knows, this is not the actual Lois Wilson. This is another Lois. Lois is passed, so she wouldn't be writing in. Or if she was, it'd be a little bit weird, you know what I mean? Anyway, Lois says, hi, John. First of all, I've really enjoyed SoberSpeak. I think I found you when my sponsor asked me to listen to Joe and Charlie in the Big Book, and your podcast came up. I've so enjoyed all of your guests so far. So I feel a little guilty now that I'm sending a caveat, a but. What about your way? And then she says, when Ricky R was talking about how important it was to go through the steps as quickly as possible, my heart sank. He is a very persuasive speaker. I'm on the slow boat, 1+ years sober and just starting step 4. This seems to be working for me. I'm a cautious person, and if somebody had forced me to do the steps, forced the steps on me as soon as I walked in the door, I would have turned around. It took me months of listening to figure that out. And yes, I did need and sponsor, and then yes, I absolutely need the steps. And I also love your comment to take what you want and leave the rest at the curb for the trash man. In the beginning of the episode, she says, but this comment didn't work for me. And I found this insistence on only one path to sobriety upsetting. Based on those in my home group, we all took different ways to get there and can support each other no matter what the timeline we're on. I hope you don't mind me sharing my thoughts. Well, of course not, Lois. And she says, I'm afraid that there may be other slow boaters like me out there who are panicking. Best regards, and thank you so much for Sober Speak. Lois B. See, it's not Lois W. It's Lois B. No, I'm glad you have a voice there, and that's what we want to be, here, especially as Sober Speak, is all-inclusive. And you're right, I don't think there is one path to sobriety. There are many paths to sobriety, and our big book actually says that. It says, we only know a little. God will constantly reveal more to you and to him and to others, or whatever it says in there. I'm paraphrasing, but you get the idea. So thanks for writing in, Lois. I really appreciate it. Scott writes in, and Scott says, thank you, John, for including me in the Facebook group. Well, my pleasure, Mr. Scott. He says, I'm looking forward to being a part of the community. I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm 48 years old, and I have been struggling with alcohol my whole life. I've gone through stretches of sobriety from 10 years to a day. I recently got 60 days, and then I drank the next day. Honestly, I don't drink because of being depressed or sad or trying to run away from something. I just drink because I enjoy it. I understand that. Excuse me. I understand that, Scott. He says, problem is that when I start, the allergy kicks in and I can't stop. Well, you're one of us. Then stupid decisions happen and then trouble happens. So as a result, starting tomorrow, I'm going to give AA another shot. No pun intended. Laughed out loud. I started listening to your podcast probably about a year ago, off and on. I really enjoy your content. I really don't have a favorite guest. They all bring something of value. However, I do really like your friend David G. He's on quite often and he brings a lot of value. Thank you again for including me in all your hard work and service to all of us alcoholics. I really hope I can make my sobriety stick this time. I can't go on living the way I'm living, or I'm sure I'll be in an early grave. Take care, Scott M. Well, thank you for writing in, Scott. I appreciate you, man, and I'm glad you're part of our Facebook group, and I'm glad you're getting back on the right path. This is something from, this is a post in the super secret Facebook group. It says, Eric posted in the group. He said, I just listened today to episode number 272, Extravagant Promises, where John M. speaks. Wow, he says in big capital letters. Your story, John, really made a great impact on me today. Just want to thank you for sharing your story and make this community stronger and stronger every day. It made me remember the first person I met that promised me that everything was going to be okay if I was willing to go to any extent and do what they willing to go to any extent to get what they had, sobriety. And that was to sit down and shut up and make coffee. And the God of my understanding will guide me through my fellow brothers and sisters. God bless you, John, and keep everything one day at a time. Well, thank you, Mr. Eric. I appreciate all your kind words there, my friend. And finally, Ray posted in the super secret Facebook group as well. He says, hi guys. First, John M., the friend who never knew me. I found SoberSpeak in jail. Like many, they gave us tablets, and instead of using mine to waste money on movies and music, I bought one album of 55 Alan Jackson songs, and I downloaded every SoberSpeak podcast that could help me grow. I listened to so many episodes, over 150 for sure, without keeping track that I couldn't find one. I hadn't heard one after a while. My favorite episode is Rich B. I've been out since January and I've relapsed. I'm sorry today, but I need someone to work with me as a sponsor, please. So this has been posted a little bit ago. A lot of people responded to Ray and have been more than willing to help him out inside that super secret Facebook group. All right, everybody, that is another, and thank you, Ray, for writing that in the group, and thank you for your kind words once again, and I'm glad we're able to provide you some spiritual guidance while you were incarcerated, and I'm glad to see you were on the right track, my friend. Okay, that is it. Another episode of SoberSpeak in the tank, in the can. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. May God bless you and keep you until then. I hope to be back next week. I do this 1 week at a time. God bless you, everybody. Love you guys. Bye-bye.